As you look at the pain of the world, you can be really disheartened. Oh, wait. He says, utter defeat upon me weighs. Notice the dash. All lost. It's compelling the way he sets this line up. Dash. The foe victorious. And then in parenthetics, to finish now section 7. Yet, mid the ruins, notice it's capitalized, pride colossal stands, unshaken to the last. Endurance, resolution, to the last. Now I find this an echo of Song of Myself 7. Let's just go back there for a moment. And the way in which, when you start to finish Leaves of Grass, there are all these echoes. You remember right after passage 6, he'll say it. Is anyone supposed to be lucky to be born? I hasten to inform her it's just as lucky to die, and I know it. Right? And then to skip down to the end, he says, undraped. You are not guilty to me, nor stale, nor discarded. I see through. He's talking about the dead, right? I see the broadcloth and the gingham, whether or no. I am around, tenacious, acquisitive, tireless, and cannot be shaken away. Go back to this line one more time. Yet mid the ruins, pride colossal stands, unshaken to the last. Endurance, resolution, to the last. Well, this is his cultural theodicy. In other words, why did the war have to happen and all these terrible things? Why must we have the horrors of our history? Obviously, slavery being one of the worst. Why? And he says, there's so much I don't understand, but I do know this. I'm still proud. Notice it's capitalized even. I'm still proud of what we will accomplish. Oh, really? What are we going to accomplish? Well, here comes Whitman now in passage 8. This is obviously the hope for the future. And some have said this is some of the most compelling reading. Some have said some of the most disturbing reading, because Whitman is going to set up an idealized view of what it could be like. And here we will move from our Plato's Republic to obviously John Lennon's classic Imagine. Let's take a look. Now, trumpeter, for thy close, vouchsafe a higher strain than any yet. I love that he uses this word higher. Takes us back to our study of Wordsworth's Ten Turn Abbey when we talk about those elevated thoughts. Sing to my soul, the mystic. Sing to my soul. Renew its languishing faith and hope. And there it is. Why do we pick up Leaves of Grass and read it? Because we have this kind of languishing faith and hope. I mean, dude, if you study history, you got to study that some really, really bad stuff has gone down. No question about it. But he wants to be renewed. He says it. Rouse up my slow belief. There. That's why I call him an intentional optimist. Slow belief. Give me some vision of the future. There's his mystic, right? Give me for once its prophecy. We commented on, this. The only other time this word gets used is in Song of the Redwood Tree, you'll remember. Prophecy and joy. Now, of course, this vision takes us back to Song of the Answerer too, right? Breath of vision. 14 times now, this word joy is going to get used as we finish this. And it takes us back to, how does Whitman finish several of these long poems, like Passage to India? The idea of all the exclamation points as well. We're going to get 16 of them starting in the next line. Oh, glad, exulting, culminating song. A vigor. That takes us back to Sing the Body Electric 3. A vigor more than earth's is in thy notes. Marches of victory. So notice, it's brilliant. He goes from idealizing crusades to talking about the horrors of the Civil War to now a different kind of battle hymn, right? Marches of victory. Notice the use of the dash. Man disenthralled. I love this use of this word. It's the only time in Leaves of Grass it gets used. The conqueror at last. Whitman will take, it's brilliant the way he does this, he takes martial language and he turns it into spiritual language. And of course, he's not alone. A lot of poets will do this. I just find this fascinating that he does this at the end of this poem. Take a look now how he plays this game. Hymns to the universal God. Now, earlier he had said that this was exalting. This takes us back to, O Captain, my Captain. Watch how he uses that word exalting in both a positive and a negative way, and obviously negative in O Captain, right? Hymns to the universal God. Well, who is the universal God? Oh, well, that's Jefferson's The Laws of Nature and Nature's God. Notice, as we say in our lectures on the Declaration of Independence at learnstrong.net, Jefferson's so brilliant. He doesn't talk about the Protestant God. He doesn't talk about the Catholic God. He talks about the laws of nature and nature's God. Here it's the universal God. Obviously, a lot of Emerson happening here. Hymns to the universal God from universal man. All joy. Now, I love his use of the word universal here, because Whitman seems to me to be way ahead of his time. In other words, I think he's arguing that once America becomes the greatest country on earth, and it's about to become, for Whitman it's already happening, but America had to get through the Civil War, which would begin the ending of slavery and hopefully the racism that would be a part of this nation, and ultimately lead to what? Well, being the leader in the world. Once we become the greatest country in the world, then for Whitman it's about this ideal universal view of all humans. Of course, he'll use the word man, but he will include in Leaves of Grass, obviously, all humans here. All joy. A reborn race appears. Notice the resurrection mentality. I mean, there's a lot of religious language going on here. Notice again that the dash. A perfect world. All joy. Again, no, utopia never gets used in Leaves of Grass as a word, but here, it's so close. A perfect world. Women and men in, notice his trinities, wisdom, innocence, and health. There it is. That's what he wishes for all of us. Wisdom, not knowledge, but wisdom. The ability to use what we know. Innocence takes us back to our songs of innocence, songs of experience, obviously of play. And health, Whitman already beginning to emphasize the fact that his health is deteriorating. And then the dash, all joy. And then he's got this really controversial line. Riotous, laughing, bacchanals filled with joy. Now, riotous and bacchanals only gets used one time in Leaves of Grass, and it's here. And obviously we're going back to the Greek tradition of, you know, the Apollonian versus the Dionysian or the Bacchalian, right? Laughing is used 15 times in Leaves of Grass, and this will be the last time it gets used. War, sorrow, suffering, gone. Here's his vision of the world. Again, the use of the dash makes us think a lot of Emily Dickinson, huh? The rank earth purged. We've seen his use of this word in Leaves of Grass. Nothing but joy left. The ocean, we started with the ocean, we finished with the ocean. The ocean filled with joy. The atmosphere, all joy. Again, every time he starts talking in these idealized ways, he always comes back to something physical like nature. Joy, joy in, notice his trinities, freedom, worship, love. There it is. That's his argument. Now, of course, for him, worship doesn't mean sitting in a pew in a church. It can, but it doesn't mean that. It means awe. It means reverence. That ability to see everything in the world through a certain prism of respect. Even, of course, the pain of the world. Back to his theodicy. Joy in the ecstasy of life. He'll remember this word ecstasy in his Singer in the Prison, right? Enough to merely be. I have students that say that's the coolest line in all Leaves of Grass, right there. What is the goal? Enough to merely be. Go back. What is it that he says? That you exist. That the powerful play goes on. You may contribute a verse. There it is, right? That you exist. Enough to merely be. Enough to breathe. Wow, how great is this? In other words, we don't have to die and go to heaven, he says. We can create heaven on earth if only we could figure out how to love, respect, how we could worship, enjoy freedom and joy. And then he says it now in his Trinity again. Joy, joy, all over joy. Now, let's be fair. Some will say, come on. We've been through this so many times in the history of literature, starting obviously with our Plato's Republic. We've given full lectures at learnstrong.net. And every time it's always going to be the same quest to try and build something that is impossible. Well, first of all, let's just say out loud, he's talking in a mystic voice. So he's talking in a visionary voice. He's saying, wouldn't it be great? But as we like to ask in our lectures on Plato, wouldn't you prefer to live in a family where there's less toxicity, not more? Wouldn't you prefer to live in a country or a world where there's more understanding and more love? Not that in any way we're going to ultimately accomplish this goal. I don't think Whitman himself believed that. Obviously, he had served as a wound dresser during the war. He understood. But why not dream? And that takes us now to 2a. Well, I think the argument he's making here is that out of horrible things come good things. That we have to dream. We have to imagine a better world if we're going to ever build that world. We have to. And to that degree, this is the reason I think you guys especially have to read and appreciate Leaves of Grass. Because he's challenging you to not lose your innocence, the word that he in fact uses here. At 2b, well, I love all the repetitions, I love all the echoes, I love in the last passage that he gives us 14 joys and 16 exclamation points. Why? Because he's giving us the energy of joy. Here is the language of joy, right? You can't help but read that set of lines and not be a little bit enthusiastic, and that's what he wants. At 3a, I've already mentioned it, and there's so many places I could go here, but let's just see the critiques that are applied, obviously from Plato's Republic to John Lennon's Imagine, and all the other critiques that are a part of that. Brave New World, Ayn Rand's Anthem, obviously the list goes on and on and on, obviously. And yet, standing behind all of those dystopian texts, here's Whitman saying, yeah, but if we could figure out ways to love each other, respect each other, wouldn't the world be just a little better place? Finally, at 3b, well, okay, how are you going to own a poem like this? I throw it at you guys. Now you get to decide how you own it, how you live with a poem like this. Do you believe, for example, in joy? Do you think it's still possible given all the horrors of the world, right? I hear people say, for example, America's never been in worse shape. I'm like, dude, you clearly haven't read, Leaves of Grass. I mean, all you got to do is get through the drum taps. And as we said when we finished our drum tap section, man, that is a hard section to read. Why? Because there's not a lot of joy there. And yet, Whitman, amazing. He comes through all of that. His own health destroyed through all of that. And he still is a believer in joy. How about you? Do you believe in it? How about this? When was the last time that you felt the kind of joy that he is suggesting? And I wonder if it had anything to do with love. I think it might. I hope that Whitman continues to challenge all of us. Thank you.